Funding for the Writing Code has been provided by the National Endowment for the Humanities. Great ideas brought to life. The National Science Foundation, where discoveries begin. The Arthur Vining Davis Foundations, and the Carl and Lily Pforzheimer Foundation.
Writing is a relative newcomer. It was invented, as far as we can tell, in a small number of places on Earth.
The idea of putting down a story, I'm so glad someone thought of it, whenever it was, because it's a marvelous way to make a living, I'll tell you.
Writing is a code. It's the making of marks that you then have to understand that these marks can be retranslated into speech. So written words are to speech as black and white musical notes on a page are to music.
Writing system is a system of symbols corresponding to the sounds and the words of spoken language. People have always been interested in them because they're so important. They're the way that we record our history, that we record our laws, that we record our sacred scriptures. They're the way we make our shopping lists. We can't do without them.
Being illiterate does not make you less of a human being. But in the modern world of the last 200 years, literacy has become like electricity. It's something we really can't function without. If you look around you, you will see that we are surrounded by the tools of literacy and by the demands of literacy.
Let me tell you how all these sounds that we're writing down arose. You may have thought that it was because of the Tower of Babel that split the world up into different languages. It wasn't really like that at all, according to some people. It was the god Shiva, the Hindu god Shiva, who in fact was the god of destruction. And Shiva stamped his feet hard and broke all the people up into different groups so that they all spoke different languages. So I owe devotion to the god Shiva because I'm a linguist, and without him I wouldn't have a job.
For linguists, writing isn't language, but really a recording device. It's a primitive recording device, a very simple recording device, but we think of it as actually a very elegant recording device. It's at least as important as the wheel, and I think you can make a very good argument that it is more important than the wheel.
Here I am surrounded by writing. All of these signs, this is what Times Square is famous for. All of these things are shouting at us. And it's here for a reason. It's not just decoration. It's designed to communicate with all of these people walking by. I presume most of them today are tourists. Literacy is something which is, after all, very new for our species. As far as we know, writing only goes back about 6,000 years at the most. And in the meantime, our species, according to most estimates, has existed for 150,000. And so this business of writing is a very new thing. And yet, certainly we have taken the ball and run with it.
Writing tends to be invented in societies with agriculture that have to keep track of quantities of crops. You might have, say, a big storehouse where every farmer would store his grain at the beginning of the season and then come back later on to claim it. And you've got to keep track of which farmer contributed how much grain. That kind of record keeping is thought to be the ancestor of writing systems.
Here are what we call tokens. They are the immediate precursor of writing. Disk, cones, tetrahedrons, cylinder, triangles, here a half a sphere. Do I have a cylinder? Yes, a nice little cone. Those shapes are simple, but they are striking. They are easy to identify. They are easy to remember. They start, let's say, 7500 BC. These were used for 4,000 years in the entire Near East. Everybody knew, oh, the little cones, the little balls. Yes, yes, I have plenty of those. What were they? Nobody knew.
Writing is not something that happens naturally to people. Writing has to be acquired. And in the history of human beings, writing wasn't always there. It had to be invented.
5 cones. They look like nothing in the world but suppositories. What can they be? They are counters that were used in prehistory to count goods. Each type of merchandise was counted with a different counter. Accountants want to be able to keep the record of unfinished transactions, and they invent an envelope. They put the tokens in there, they close the envelope, but clay is not transparent. I can't see anymore what tokens are in there. Therefore, the accountant thought of taking a token and impressing the token on the outside to show how many tokens of what kind were held inside. This is how three-dimensional counters become two-dimensional signs, and we are on the way to writing.
We don't know if writing enabled the city or if the city required writing, but we do know with reasonable certainty that writing was developed as an administrative aid because administrating these large institutions was getting more complex. They have more goods to track, different kinds of goods to track. The earliest writing is the record-keeping device for these institutions. Writing was invented in Mesopotamia, which is in what is now southern Iraq, in the city of Uruk, about 3200 BC or so. The very earliest tablets write the signs really as pictures. They're drawn with a sharp object as outlines. A head looks more or less like the outline of a head. And very soon after that, they start using a stylus, and they start impressing the stylus into the clay to make the characteristic triangular wedges that give rise to the name cuneiform. Cuneiform actually means triangle-shaped. Cuneus is Latin for triangle. Cuneiform tablets range from very, very small text with a few signs to very, very large text with thousands of signs. And one of the smallest tablets I've ever seen said simply, "One udu, baung," one sheep, dead. So the basic wedges are the horizontal, the vertical, and then an angled wedge, which looks something like this. In the very earliest texts, the symbols exclusively stand for concepts, ideas. We call them ideograms. This is Dingir, which means God. The sign for mouth had several concepts associated with it. It's used to write the Sumerian word ka, mouth, so we call it the ka sign. Oh, this is a ka sign. As the writing system develops, writing just ideas is not powerful enough, so they start to use the signs as syllables. They start to take the sounds of the signs and use it to write just the sound divorced from the idea. So that ka, mouth, comes to be used for ka anytime that the ka sound is represented.
About 3500 BC, some genius got the idea that you could write words that you couldn't draw pictures of by writing their sounds, by using the pictures of things for the way they sound rather than for what they represent. This is called the rebus principle. We still use it in puzzles today.
And everybody's familiar with this because we've all done it as children in those little stories where some of the words are replaced by pictures. So instead of the word I, you actually see a picture of an eye.
I believe. I believe.
The great leap was for people to realize that what they were symbolizing was not the thing, but the word for that thing, the sound of that word.
A person without literacy hears the word dog and they think of the creature. They don't think of D-O-G in their head the way we do as literates. It's a different way of being human.
Cuneiform actually started with Sumerians and then expanded into different people and different countries. Here is Persepolis, the capital of the Persian Empire, and the decipherment of cuneiform inscriptions started from here. Many different forms and styles of cuneiform appeared. And as we can see here, we have three different kind of writings. Old Persian text at the top, and Elamite in the middle, and at the last is Babylonian. And all of them, they are different languages written in cuneiform. It's really difficult to read it from down here. From the 15th century, 16th century, the travelers, they started to come to this place and they found some inscriptions. Carsten Niebuhr was a Danish traveler who traveled from India to Denmark alone, and he passed Persepolis and he made very fine copies of the inscriptions and some monuments here. And his exact drawings helped scholars in Europe to work on the inscriptions and to realize what is the real story about these strange, mysterious signs. This frieze is the place which one of the most famous drawings of Carsten Niebuhr was made.
They realized that they were dealing with a writing system, but they had no idea what it was or what language it was in or anything else. But a couple of geniuses, Grotefend, a German high school teacher, and Rawlinson, a British military man, deciphered the first cuneiform inscription, and they did it the same way without knowing about each other's work, completely independently. Grotefend did his on a bet with someone that he could do it, and Rawlinson was stationed in Baghdad and was interested. There is a wall-cut inscription at Bisatun, which is on the border between Iraq and Iran. And it has 3 panels that were written in 3 different languages in the cuneiform script.
When Henry Rawlinson came to the area as a young British officer, he had the chance to be very close to the Bisatun inscription, so he started to climb up the cliffs to make copies of the inscription. For the Old Persian text, it was easier because there was a ledge in front of it, but for Elamite and Babylonian text, it was so dangerous and difficult. So he used a young Kurdish boy to climb up the cliff, and he could make copies of that inscriptions as well.
Both Rawlinson and Grotefend realized that one of the inscriptions was probably Old Persian because it looked like Persian kings on the panel above that had the figures. And they both knew that within Persian history, the Persian royal inscriptions read so-and-so, great king, king of kings, son of so-and-so, great king, king of kings, and so on. And they knew that there was only one place in Persian history where grandfather and grandson had the same name. And so they substituted in the names of the kings there, and that gave them a half a dozen symbols or so. And they realized that they were probably dealing with an Old Persian inscription, and Old Persian was a known language, so they were able to decipher it.
They had a knowledge about history, linguistics, ancient languages, so they could use them all to crack the code. This is Va, this is Za, this is Ra, and this is Ya. Darius gave some information about the history of his reign in this inscription, and he was sure that nobody can read that from that height. Darius was talking with the people in the future.
There are signs everywhere. Just imagine being deprived of ATM machines, not being able to use a telephone properly. It means that you are just missing out on a lot of what the world consists of today. What about drawing? Why is drawing not writing? After all, when I draw a picture of something, aren't I trying to get something across? Even the simplest drawings. What about a sign showing me where the men's room is? Isn't that writing? What's the difference? After all, a picture is supposed to be worth 1,000 words. Well, the difference is that the picture represents an idea. It doesn't represent language. It doesn't represent individual words. The sign is recording the idea of that place. It's not recording specific individual words.
There's other visual systems that can communicate information, what people sometimes call pictographs. Some American Indians, for instance, kept records by drawing pictures. You see little figures of people and they're moving and they're doing things and you're getting some information from it, but you can't read it off in terms of spoken language. A pictograph is basically a picture of something, partly conventionalized, simplified. but it's something that people can recognize no matter what language they speak, like a picture of a suitcase. The airports, of course, nowadays are full of pictographs telling us where the baggage collection is and so on. But the picture of a suitcase could be ambiguous because you don't know whether it means the place you pick your luggage up or the place where you send your luggage in. You can't use pictographs to talk about abstract subjects such as law or religion or politics.
Wait up!
Now, the great thing about language is that we don't just blurt out words for single thoughts like stop, go, ladies' room, men's room, but we can convey new combinations of ideas. We can talk about not just a dog biting a man, but a man biting a dog. We can talk about the cow jumping over the moon and the dish running away with a spoon.
So the difference between pictures and writing is that writing is a representation of language, not ideas. And just the way you can say anything you want, you can write about anything you want. Writing isn't limited in the way pictures are.
Most people think that Chinese characters are pictures of things. So that's why we call them pictographs. So let's test that and look at some of the ones that are more like pictures. What is this? What's it a picture of? If I showed this to 1,000 people who don't know Chinese, I doubt that a single one would be able to guess what this is a picture of. I'll start you with a little bit of a hint. You see, those are his 4 legs. Clip-de-clop, clop, clop. Here's another one that's very much a picture of something. Can you guess? This is a turtle. Gui. And this other one I showed you is a horse. Ma. If we study the evolution of these 2 characters from the very earliest times, we can see how they gradually evolved from a stage when they were pictures until we can no longer recognize them as pictures.
That's the character for big. It shows a picture of a man with his arms and legs spread out to show how big he is.
Walking in Chinatown, you will see many people. They all come from different parts of China and other overseas communities. Therefore, they all speak different ways.
Some linguists would say that they're actually different languages. Others call them dialects. But they are so different that people really can't understand each other when they speak these different forms of Chinese.
However, when they look at the signs in Chinatown, they all can recognize because there is only one writing system in China.
激星，
激星，
星星就是这个星光这个星，
国语是上，
个是
上，
星星。
星 He reads it 星 but I read it 上. So that's the Cantonese word for up is 星 but in Mandarin it's 上. And but it's written the same way, so if he shows me, I can understand it, but if he's saying it, I couldn't understand what he was saying.
There's really just one form of Chinese writing, and that is writing essentially Mandarin with Chinese characters. And anybody across the whole of China who wants to be literate simply acquires that ability to read and write Mandarin with Chinese characters. He or she doesn't have to pronounce it like a person from Beijing. He can pronounce it in his or her own way. The Chinese writing system is able to transcend those different dialects and languages and enable people from one part of China to write and communicate with people in a different part of China. Over 80% of the Chinese characters are made up of two parts. A part on the left side that tells us something about the meaning of the character. Here we have a part that means woman or female. So that's giving us an idea of the meaning of this character. On the right side is another part that tells us something about the sound of the character. And this here we know is ma. This doesn't mean female horse. It means mother. Female on the left and the sound ma on the right. The meaning part on the left and the sound part on the right, neither of them by themselves tell us exactly what the character means. It's only when they come together that they give us a precise word.
Now we look at the two characters up. Both have the same left side, which is the meaning in Chinese. It means women. The right-hand side of the character gives you the sound, pronounced 姐. The second one on the right-hand side gives you the sound as well, pronounced 妹. 姐妹 in Chinese means sisters.
When you speak Chinese, you have to use tones. They're very important, but they're not indicated in the writing system.
Let's use the example of 一. 一.
The level tone, ma.
Ma means mother.
一.
The rising tone, ma.
Ma is a plant.
乙.
The dipping tone, ma.
Ma, that's a horse.
乙, fourth tone.
In the falling tone, ma.
Ma, that's a curse.
This reminds me of a jingle employing all the different tones of ma. Here it goes. Mama qi ma, ma man, mama ma ma. That means mother was riding the horse. The horse was slow. Mother cursed the horse. It's the oldest living writing system on Earth. It's basically the same system that was in existence 3,200 years ago. It's adapting itself to the modern world, but it's still the same structure, the same concept.
When Europeans first came to the New World, they discovered that the Mayan people in what is now Mexico had invented their own writing system and used it to carve their history and mythology on stone pillars and temple walls. They also had vast libraries of books made of bark. The Maya writing system combined pictures and sound signs into exquisite glyphs. In the 16th century, Spanish conquerors destroyed their libraries and banned their books as devil writing. Soon no one could read or write in Mayan. It took 200 years and the effort of dozens of scholars to decipher these glyphs.
By 1978, we had a pretty good understanding of how Mayan writing worked and could read words, phrases to some extent. And by now, we can read pretty much connected texts in Maya.
Their mathematics and astronomy were as sophisticated as the Egyptian and Chinese. Their invention of writing led them to an advanced civilization and a complex culture.
Written language represents the sounds and words of a spoken language. Now, when we say sounds, in the cases of European languages that have an alphabet, we're talking about the consonants and the vowels. But there are some writing systems in which the individual symbols stand for sequences of consonants and vowels of the sort that we call a syllable.
Ask a linguist what's a syllable? We can't tell you. We just know that book is 1 syllable, and apple is 2 syllables, and transubstantiation is 6 syllables. But what exactly is going on is a mystery.
One language that uses a syllabic writing system very effectively is Japanese, because most of the syllables are just consonant vowel. So, for instance, the word sukiyaki in Japanese is written in their syllabary with just 4 symbols, su, ki, ya, ki. Another language that uses a syllabary is Cherokee, spoken in Oklahoma and in North Carolina. This is an example of a Cherokee eye chart actually used in optician's office in the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. And because Cherokee is a language in which the spoken syllables are mostly just consonant plus vowel, each of these symbols stands for a consonant plus a vowel.
I'm a writer, Cherokee writer, with something like 52 novels. My latest novel is based on the life of Sequoyah, and it's called simply Sequoyah. Sequoyah is the only man in history that we really know about who was totally illiterate and invented a writing system for an entire people that worked. It was tremendously successful.
My name's Chad Smith, Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation. Welcome to the Cherokee Nation.
The historians like to say the Cherokee people became literate almost overnight. It's a very easy system to learn, and it was very much in use until my wife's father's generation. He left behind a whole bunch of letters and church documents and all kinds of material that was written in the syllabary.
A syllabary is a writing system where each symbol stands for a syllable.
Su, li, ni, ne, ja, ya, ji, we, wa.
This chart is a modern arrangement of the syllabary characters organized by sound, with the vowel sounds going across and the consonant sounds going down. This row shows all the symbols for syllables starting with the H sound. This is ha, he, he, ho, hu, huh.
This is a spiral notebook that belonged to my grandmother. My mother gave me this book, and this is a songbook that my grandmother wrote. She's taken and translated songs into the Cherokee syllabary.
Almost every Cherokee can recognize the word jalagi for Cherokee, which is ja, la, gi.
I can tell you that Sequoyah, he saw this talking leaves, this communication by writing. He emulated that with 86 characters. Each character was a syllable. Within 10 years of the introduction of his syllabary in 1822, the Cherokees were 90% literate in their own language.
What Sequoyah did was amazing. He developed a writing system for his language single-handedly. There have been postage stamps created in his honor, statues, artwork, counties named after him. In the 1840s, a European botanist named these giant trees after Sequoyah, and it's a fitting tribute for his gigantic accomplishment in creating a writing system for Cherokee.
All writing systems start as pictures of things, and then advance to symbols for the sounds of the language.
Recent discoveries have produced some remarkably early writings in the hieroglyphic script from around 3500 BC. And this has woken the old controversy as to which culture was the first to invent writing. Was it Egypt? Was it the cultures of the ancient Near East, such as Sumer? And perhaps it's really a pointless question. The important thing is that both of them started writing material down, that we do have records from this very early period, and these can help bring the ancient peoples alive for us. It's not just a question of who was the first person to invent something technical, it's also who were the first people that we can recapture from the past.
This mound is the Pyramid of Unas. In its subterranean chambers are walls covered with hieroglyphs, and that collection of hieroglyphs is the first extensive text from ancient Egypt. About the same time that Stonehenge was being built, about 2350 BC, the Egyptians were carving hieroglyphs in this pyramid. I first came into this tomb in 1973 after studying the pyramid text for about 2 or 3 years. And this was really the first time I saw Egyptian texts in the flesh, so to speak. And I think it's kind of appropriate because these were also the first collection of Egyptian texts in history. The earliest examples of hieroglyphs that we have show the basic principles of hieroglyphic writing. Pictures of things used to represent things themselves, but also pictures used for their sounds rather than for what they are pictures of. By using pictures in this way, you can write words that you can't draw pictures of. This is the picture of a scarab beetle. And of course, if you're talking about scarab beetles, you could draw this picture. But the word for scarab beetle sounded like the Egyptian word for become. And of course, you can't draw a picture of become. So when you see the scarab beetle, most often it's a form of the word to become. It becomes a symbol also for resurrection, for the newborn sun in the morning. If you're talking about something more generic, like the idea of striding or running, you could, for example, use, as the Egyptians did, a pair of walking legs. And in this case, the running legs are known as a determinative because they tell us the general idea of the word. Take the picture of a man with his hand to his mouth. It can have a number of meanings. It could mean a man eating, a man drinking, a man speaking, or even a man thinking with his hand to his forehead. The sound signs spell out exactly what the word means. The word for to eat was spelled with sound signs representing WNM, and the picture of a man with his hand to his mouth. The top one means to eat, and the bottom one means to speak. Both of them have to do with the use of the mouth. And the determinative is the picture of a man with his hand to his mouth.
Most words are spelt out with sound signs, and then a picture sign at the end tells you what sort of word it is. A picture of a cat for the word for cat. For verbs of motion, a set of walking legs. And of course, if you're not quite sure what the word means, you then can look at the picture and it gives you some idea of the category of meaning that the word is about.
The Egyptians were not concerned with representing things the way they actually looked. They were drawing symbols of things. Typical picture of an Egyptian person with the head turned to the side and the shoulders in the front and the legs turned to the side. This is not a strange way of standing. This is a symbol of a person. When you look at a scene in an Egyptian temple or on the wall of a tomb, You will see that it's got large-scale figures of people working in the fields and so forth, and it's also covered with hieroglyphs. And to us, it looks like they're writing on their pictures, but they're not, actually. The hieroglyphs were spelling out what the picture said, and the large-scale pictures were actually the determinatives, the words that indicated the meaning of the hieroglyphs themselves. It's a big hieroglyph, and the little hieroglyphs simply spell out what this big hieroglyph is doing. This is one of the rarer determinatives in hieroglyphs. It's a picture of a giraffe. This is used as a determinative in one word only, S-R, giraffe. This word means to prophesy or to foretell. And it's clear that the giraffe is the determinative because giraffes can see farther than any other animal and can tell what's coming. Beginning with the ancient Romans, the obelisks were taken from Egypt to various countries around the world. We can think of this as the plunder of Egyptian civilization, but in fact, it has helped contribute to our knowledge of ancient Egypt because one of the obelisks taken to England, now in Kingston Lacy, was used by Thomas Young, one of the early decipherers of hieroglyphs, to unlock the secrets of Egyptian hieroglyphic script.
The most important discovery that made our eyes clear and give us a light is the discovery of the Rosetta Stone in 1799. And this is why I believe that the Rosetta Stone is like the icon of our identity. Because without Rosetta Stone, we'll know nothing about these people. Those people will be dark. Their knowledge that did go up to the top and they ruled this world could be finished. We don't know anything about them.
The importance of the stone is really an accident of history. It was discovered by the French, by engineers in Napoleon's army in 1799. After Napoleon's defeat, it was surrendered to the English, and it came to the British Museum in 1801. And really, it's this almost accidental quality that makes it so remarkable. It was the right thing at the right time that traveled through the right places, was circulated to the right people. And this allowed it to become the turning point in our understanding of ancient Egyptian writing. This is the Rosetta Stone. It's perhaps the most famous single item in the whole of the British Museum and has become a great icon of all attempts to understand the ancient past in its own terms. What it is a large fragment of a granite stela that was erected in 197 BC, and the texts on it record the so-called Decree of Memphis in honor of the new boy king Ptolemy V. And Ptolemy comes from a Macedonian dynasty. The priests are native Egyptians, and there's a very uneasy relationship between these two cultures that are involved in the governance of Egypt. And this explains the crucial fact about the stone. The same text is written in 3 different languages. At the top, you have the Egyptian hieroglyphs, the traditional script of the Egyptian priesthood, Egyptian culture. In the middle is the Demotic language, which is the normal, everyday language of the native Egyptians. And at the bottom, you have the script and language of the invading foreign rulers. Because it has the same text in 3 different languages, it really provided the great key that allowed Egyptian hieroglyphs to be deciphered.
Scholars worked on this for about 20 years, 2 in particular, Thomas Young in England and Jean-François Champollion in France.
The breakthrough came with copies of inscriptions which showed rings, known as cartouches, which enclosed groups of signs. And people guessed quite rightly that these might mark out the names of the rulers of Egypt. One of the great steps forward was taken by Thomas Young, the English scholar.
He could see in the Greek text the names of King Ptolemy and his queen Cleopatra. and they occurred in the Greek text in approximately the same place that the oval rings occurred in the hieroglyphic text. So he figured that these surrounded the names, and so that the names must say something like Ptolemy and Cleopatra. And he could see that, in fact, there were signs in the approximate place in Ptolemy's name corresponding to P, T, and L that were in Cleopatra's name. And the important thing about this was not that he knew how the Egyptians wrote P, T, and L, but that he realized that these hieroglyphs were not mystical symbols, but they actually represented sounds like the letters of an alphabet did. If you look, actually, you have P in both names, you have O in both names, you have L in both names.
The trouble was, although he had this alphabet for writing names, he firmly believed that normally hieroglyphs were pictures recording ideas, and that the Egyptians only used this alphabet when they were writing foreign names.
Champollion hit on the answer in 1822. He saw a cartouche that had a circle, which obviously represented the sun, and he knew that the word for sun was something like Ra or Re. And so he had a cartouche with a circle, a strange sign that looked like a trident, and two S's. So he had Ra SS, and he tried to figure out what the name was. And of course, knowing the list of Egyptian kings, the name that came to mind was Ramesses.
Suddenly he found he could read the name of an Egyptian native king. And if the Egyptians used sound signs to record the names of their own kings, then they must have used them to write the whole of the language.
And this was a great breakthrough. After that, it was like the dam burst. And he was, in a few years, he was able to read fairly fluently many Egyptian inscriptions.
The reports of the moment of revelation, the great breakthrough, are highly romantic. His brother describes how, when he realized he could read the name of Ramses from Abu Simbel, he rushed to his brother's office, cried out, "I've solved it," and fell into a dead faint lasting several days. By viewing a papyrus in the collection of Monsieur Salier in the south of France, Champollion made really the discovery of ancient Egyptian literature. And with this, people began to realize that hieroglyphs didn't just record the deeds of kings and of nobles. There is also a sense in which on papyrus you have a much wider body of literature. On this fragile material, you find love songs, letters, notes, laundry lists, a whole world of writing, all of which was entirely inaccessible before Champollion made this vital intellectual breakthrough.
But nothing was more important than the invention of the alphabet.
Everyone knows the order of the alphabet, but no one knows how it got that way. And that's been the order of the alphabet for 3,500 years at least.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P.
The most abstract kind of writing system, and a writing system that, as far as we can tell, was only invented once, and then probably by accident, is the alphabet. In the alphabet, every symbol represents a single, irreducible unit of sound. The alphabet is such an abstract notion that it was invented only once, in Egypt. And it was so difficult to grasp that the Egyptians didn't even realize that they had invented it.
What's this squiggle? This is very interesting. This is an N. Actually, it represents a wave of water. It's interesting because our letter N is eventually derived from this hieroglyph through the Phoenicians. In fact, most of our alphabet comes from Egyptian hieroglyphs through the Phoenicians.
So the people who invented the alphabet as we know it were a Semitic tribe, a Canaanite tribe.
The Phoenicians lived in the eastern shore of the Mediterranean, where Lebanon and Israel are now. They were traders, and they spread their writing system all over the Mediterranean, including Greece. But the writing system of the ancient Phoenicians only wrote the consonants. Now, that kind of writing system is continued in the writing of modern Hebrew and of modern Arabic.
Here. This sign here is a house plan, and it was the letter H in hieroglyphs. When the Phoenicians started to write, they took this sign, but they used it as the letter B, because in their language, house begins with the letter B. And eventually, this became, turned on its side, became our letter B.
The Phoenician traders taught the Greeks how to use these marks for writing, and the Greeks sort of thought to themselves, hey, we don't have the sound at the beginning of the word aleph, but we could use that letter that they're writing for the sound, we could use it for our vowel sound. And so they, in a way, were the first people to break things down into vowels and consonants.
So when the Greek heard the letter names He and Het and Yod and Ein and Waw, the Greek didn't hear any of those initial consonants. The Greek heard the vowels A, E, O, U, and so you got vowel letters in the Greek alphabet.
There are great advantages to having vowels and consonants written separately. If you think about the number of words that there are in any language that you want to write down, well, probably they're in the thousands. Maybe you can get away with writing 1,000 or 2,000 words if you just want a small vocabulary. But to have 1,000 or 2,000 signs for those different words, that's a heck of a lot to remember.
Here in Queens, New York, which used to be called a melting pot, but now is considered more of a tossed salad, where people from all over the world live together, speaking all sorts of languages, it's a great place to come and study writing systems. Right there on that street, we can see one of the oldest, Chinese, and one of the newest, Korean. The Korean alphabet was devised by King Sejong and his advisors and published in 1443. Not only is it an alphabet with a separate letter for each consonant and each vowel, but the letters for each syllable are combined into a square block in imitation of Chinese characters. In Tibetan, each of the big letters is a consonant, and it's followed by A, unless something in the writing tells you otherwise. Arabic. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. Bengali, Meghna. English, Unity Insurance and Travel. English in Urdu writing, Unity Insurance and Travel.
You don't need to have an alphabet. People certainly prosper without alphabets. But the invention was so remarkable that it spread over a period of millennia all the way around the world.
5,000 years ago, just a small group of people in one spot in the world were able to write. But now, the entire globe has access to literacy.
Visiting Egypt, you have the impression of writing being absolutely everywhere. In actual fact, probably only 1% of the population was literate. And so it was very much a tool used by the government to control the people. It probably didn't change the lives of many of the normal Egyptian population, but what it has done is to preserve the ideas, the emotions, the feelings of these ancient people for us, a heritage that has lasted 5,000 years. And in this sense, writing surely, historically, is one of the greatest inventions of mankind, a way of preserving and carrying on not just knowledge, but also the sheer experience of humanity.
For more information on the Writing Code and other PBS programs, go to pbs.org. Funding for this program was provided by the National Endowment for the Humanities, the National Science Foundation, the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations, and the Carl and Lily Pforzheimer Foundation.